Today we're diving deep into Robert Greene's incredible book, Mastery. Think of it as a roadmap for reaching your absolute highest potential, not just in your career, but in life. And it all boils down to one simple but profound choice.
So, right at the beginning of this whole journey, you're faced with two paths. On one side, you've got Sam the Dabbler. You know Sam, he's always chasing the next shiny object, jumping from project to project, but never really getting great at anything. Then you've got Sarah the Master. She picks a craft and dedicates herself to it. For years, she sees failure as a lesson, and she's building something that will last. So, who do you want to be? That's the core question Greene asks us.
Now, this path from being a dabbler to becoming a master, it isn't some random walk in the woods. Nope. Greene gives us a clear three-stage map. First up is the apprenticeship, where you just build your foundation. Then you move into the creative active phase, which is all about finding your unique voice. And finally, you reach mastery, the stage where you become a real innovator. So let's start right at the beginning. Okay, phase 1. And this is interesting. The journey doesn't start with picking a skill to learn. It starts with a much deeper question. It's all about discovering what Greene calls your life's task. This is that authentic calling that's going to fuel you through everything that's to come.
See, Greene's big idea here is that every single one of us is born with some kind of unique inclination, a natural pull towards certain things. The whole path to mastery is about getting in sync with that inner voice. And to do that, you have to ask yourself, honestly, what were you uniquely meant to do?
So how do you figure that out? Well, Greene gives us 3 keys. First, look back, way back to your childhood. What did you love doing before the world told you what you should do? Those are some powerful, unfiltered clues. Second, and this is a big one, you've got to avoid the false path. That's when you chase a career just for the money or the status. It's a trap. And third, find your niche. Mastery is about going deep, not wide. So find a very specific corner of a field and dedicate yourself to it.
And here's why finding that calling is so absolutely critical. When you're powered by that internal fire, the thousands of hours of work you have to put in, it doesn't feel like a grind. It feels like an adventure. That motivation, the kind that comes from within, is your ultimate unfair advantage.
All right, so you've found your calling. What's next? Now it's time to get your hands dirty and build your foundation. Welcome to Phase 2, the ideal apprenticeship. This is where you soak up knowledge, build skills, and totally transform your mind.
You've probably heard of the 10,000-hour rule, right? Well, Greene takes that and basically doubles down. He suggests it's closer to 20,000 hours to achieve true mastery. Now, don't get hung up on the exact number. The point is to understand the sheer scale of dedication required. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
So how do you spend all those hours? Your learning happens in 3 distinct modes. You start by just observing. You're quiet, you watch the masters, and you absorb the fundamental rules of your field. Then you move into practice. This is where you focus intensely on one basic skill at a time, building that deep muscle memory. And finally, you start to experiment. You take what you've learned and start to playfully push the boundaries, maybe even break a few rules. And this brings us to a guiding principle that you have to live by during this phase. Value learning over money. Every time. Your goal right now isn't to get rich, it's to get good. If you have to take a pay cut for an opportunity to learn more, you do it. That investment in your skills will pay off 1,000 times over down the road.
Let's be real for a second. This phase is tough. You're going to feel insecure, you're going to have doubts. So to push through, you need to adopt a few essential mindsets. First, just trust the process. It's slow, but it works. Second, actively move towards the things that are hard. That resistance is where the growth happens. Third, always keep a beginner's mind. Stay humble, stay curious. And finally, you have to learn to love failure, because it's about to become your greatest teacher.
Okay, so you've put in the years of practice, you've built a rock-solid foundation, now things get really interesting. You're ready for Phase 3, the creative leap. This is where you go from being a student who follows the rules to an innovator who writes new ones. But it takes more than just technical skill to make this leap.
The secret weapon in this phase is something Greene calls social intelligence. What is that? It's the ability to see people as they actually are, not how you want them to be. It's about understanding what truly motivates them and navigating all those complex human dynamics without letting your own ego cloud your judgment.
And why is this so unbelievably important? Because you can be the most brilliant person in the room, but it won't matter if you can't handle people. Greene makes it clear that your biggest roadblocks won't be technical problems. There'll be the political games, the envy, the hidden agendas of others that can totally derail you. Social intelligence is your shield and your sword.
And what's great is that Greene gets super practical here. He outlines what he calls the 7 deadly realities, these universal, predictable human behaviors. For instance, when you're dealing with envy, your best strategy early on is just to blend in, don't make waves. When you're dealing with someone who's completely self-obsessed, just steer the conversation towards their interests. If you can spot these patterns, you can navigate around them without getting caught in the drama.
Now, if you want a way to accelerate this whole journey, there's one thing that's more powerful than anything else. Find a mentor. A great mentor is like a time machine. They can give you wisdom that took them decades to acquire, helping you skip years of painful trial and error. They see the potential in you before you even see it in yourself. So after all this, after the discovery, the apprenticeship, the creative leap, where do you end up? What's the final destination? It's a state of mind, a place where all your deep logical knowledge fuses with a powerful, almost mystical intuition. This is the peak of mastery. A true master learns to use 2 minds at once, and they work together perfectly. You have the rational mind, which is like a faithful servant. It follows the rules, it analyzes data, it works with everything that's already known. But then you have the intuitive mind. Greene calls this a sacred gift. This is the part that sees hidden connections, feels the patterns, and makes those innovative leaps that go way beyond the rulebook. And here's the thing, awakening this higher intelligence isn't some kind of magic. It comes from very specific practices. Through thousands of hours of work, you develop a fingertip feel for your craft where it just becomes second nature. You learn to lean into your unique strengths instead of trying to be like someone else. You train yourself to see the bigger picture, and you start pulling in ideas from totally different fields to create something new. So in the end, Greene's message is incredibly empowering. Mastery isn't reserved for a chosen few. The path is there, laid out for anyone who is willing to walk it. Yes, it's a long road, it's a tough road, but it leads to the absolute highest expression of our potential. And that just leaves one final question for you to answer. What will be your first step?